Hello and welcome to our image critiquing today at Click Love Grow. I'm Lou and I'm going to be taking you through a handful of images that have been submitted by our very brave community over at Click Love Grow who have willingly put up their hand and said, yes, please, I'd love to have my image critiqued. And look, it can be a little scary to have someone look at your work and tell you what they think about it, but it is such a fantastic opportunity to learn. Even if it's not your work being critiqued, but watching other images where I point out what I love about them, what's been done really well, and where I show you the areas that I think could be strengthened or improved can really help you see through the lens with a whole new perspective. And it's such a fantastic way to learn that we incorporated inside our online photography courses. Our enthusiast course, which teaches the foundations of photography and how to shoot in manual mode, and even more so in our advanced photography course, which helps you explore and create and expand your creativity as a photographer. Now, I'm gonna bring up the images that have been submitted by today, and I would love to know what you think as well. But here's the thing, this is not about bringing anyone down. This is not about critiquing in a negative way. It's really about providing an opportunity for growth and providing that feedback in a supportive way. So let's dive in. Let's have a look at the images for today. This is from Imogen Burton. Imogen, I really love the color in this image especially. It just pops out at me straight away. It is such a big moment. It's such a fun capture that you have here. And then the pop of color, the slightly harsh light that's being used that we can see from the shadowing just really brings out the vibrancy of the color and that summer playground moment. I feel like in this shot, you're definitely capturing her personality, both through, the brightness of her outfit, the really cool sunnies she's wearing, and then of course the big pose that she has. So what do I think has been done really well? First off, I think that your settings, your exposure, all of those photography elements there are right on spot. She's nice and sharp, and you've obviously used a nice high shutter speed to capture that moment, right? Her hair is swishing, her arms are flying. None of it looks blurry. You've done a fantastic job. Compositionally, I think it's a really strong image, and I'll tell you what I love about it, and then I'll provide just one thing that I think could really have strengthened it. So first off, I love the strength of your nice straight lines. Because this is an action shot and you have some fantastic movement from your subject, I love that you've created that strength and really anchored the shot with these poles here. Also, you just have all these pops of blue throughout the image. So I know that, you had no say in what color these pieces are, but it just ties together really nicely. I think some of these people in the background, yes, they provide the story. Yes, they were there on that day, that what was happening. I feel like the only single thing I would say about this image to potentially strengthen it a little bit is to slightly change your perspective. Now, that would change the composition slightly, and it would help eradicate some of this movement in the background. So if you are taking the shot just like this and you bring yourself lower, what that is going to do is it's going to include more of the sky and the tree foliage in the image. It's going to remove some of these background elements, not completely, but it's also going to accentuate the size of the slide. And in this moment where she's jumping out, she's actually looking down, right? She's looking down anyway because she wants to see where she's going to land. So you'd actually have more of a chance of having her looking towards the camera, which could be really nice as well. So that is one thing that I would possibly suggest you could play with, of getting down nice and low. Like I said, it would really accentuate the size of the slide and have her coming towards the camera. And while sometimes a little bit of distortion like that can really throw off an image, in this case, because it's in a playground, because it's playful, because it's this big moment, I actually think that could strengthen and enhance the shot a little bit more. So that's a really small feedback point. And I guess the takeaway learning point for this is that in these moments, just changing up your perspective slightly can really help improve a composition. And also you wouldn't have these elements, especially right near her hand, because her hand would be more against some sky and clear background. And I think that could look really fantastic. Okay, so love that shot, Imogen. I think it's so fun and I'm so glad that you shared it with us. Okay, here's another really beautiful shot from Lauren Vanier. So much about this image I think has been done really beautifully. So I feel like to me this light is very late day light. It has a really lovely warmth to it. And you can see that you've got these fantastic catch lights in her eyes from the sky behind you as a photographer, and this really soft flat light, which in an image like this really suits the subject. You know, it falls nice and evenly over her face. We don't have any harsh, distracting shadows on her face. So that's all been done really beautifully. Settings wise, so I'm going to guess that you've used a really nice long lens or a long focal length for this and shot at a lovely wide aperture. So that's the low f-stop numbers. It means you've just got this slither of focus on her face, and then everything falls away into that soft blur. So you've got a great blurred background, which means she absolutely pops against it, and it gives us that lovely soft feel. Now, the colors in this photo, I think you've done such a fantastic job. So the green of the stem matches the green of the background. She's dressed in yellow, which ties together so beautifully with the yellow flower that she's holding. And then the expression here, I think, is so lovely. Oftentimes we're tempted to get our kids to smile. And maybe in this particular shoot, you did get some smiling photos as well. You know, it's great to have those moments and capture different expressions. But in this, I love the eye contact that she's making with you. I love the softness of her expression. I just feel like in an image like this, if this was one of my kids, I'd feel like, oh my gosh, that's such a side of their personality that I'm so glad I'm able to capture in images as well. So yeah, the color coordination here I think is really beautiful. Your post-processing is really lovely. The light you've chosen is really lovely. I would say there is not much I would provide in terms of feedback. Maybe potentially stepping back a tiny bit more to feel like the bottom, you know, where her hand is and the bottom of the image isn't so cramped in the frame. But honestly, I think you've done a beautiful job. I'll point out too, compositionally with her eyes, having them in the higher part of the frame. I love to put eyes on the top 2/3 line. I just think this is really sweet, and you've done a really fantastic job. So love it. Okay, so here's a shot from Rachel Todd. Oops, I think this is zoomed in a little bit. Okay, so here's a really fantastic shot from Rachel Todd. This is a really great storytelling image. Again, there's so much going on in this shot that I love. I love the use of the bench as a really nice line. I love, you know, the ball, the pop of color from the drink cups, and then all of them watching the action in front of them. This is a really fab shot. Oftentimes people say they're scared to shoot in harsh light, in middle of the daylight. This is a great example where that light actually helps bring the image to life. You have the vibrancy of the colors, you have that fantastic contrast, which, you know, not only helps all the colors pop in the image, but it tells the story of where you're taking the photo. And so it's nice and sharp, exposure looks good, all those elements are there. Okay, compositionally, I feel like this image could definitely be strengthened with just a couple of really small tweaks. So the first one is when we're using lines in an image, one of those classic photography things is always keep our lines straight, and you would be really surprised at the impact it makes when you straighten up lines and how it really strengthens a composition. So that is absolutely the first thing I would do, is straighten up this line here. I think it would make a big difference. And then the other thing I'll point out is see how there's a lot of negative space here. Now this can totally work, particularly it's a lot of greenery, it's part of the story, but it means we have the line of the bench right through the center of the image. And I'm a big fan of using the rule of thirds. And so I think this image could absolutely be strengthened if this was straightened up and it was brought a little lower in the frame. So it was down at the 2/3 line mark. Now, the reason I say that is because this space here isn't really adding anything to the story. And so if we bring them down a little lower and then we have that negative space above our heads, it makes sense to us visually as a viewer that we're kind of seeing them sitting observing, and then we're looking over the top of them towards the action of the game that's taking place. So I think those two things are straightening up the bench so it's a nice solid line, bringing it lower in the frame. And so what that would mean is in that moment where you're taking the photo, you would just lift your camera a little higher to bring that line lower, and I think that would strengthen it overall. But otherwise, all the elements are here and look fantastic. Okay, so another shot that I absolutely love, and I was obviously drawn to all the color this week in this critiquing video. Okay, so I absolutely love what you've done in this photo. The hand of the older sibling on baby's head just adds a really beautiful sense of connection, bringing them both together in this image. The lighting that you've used here is really lovely. You can tell that just by the catch lights in both their eyes, but the color you've captured in their eyes, you've got enough light, which is really important and sometimes really easy to not do, and it brings this photo to life. And then of course the colors that are, at the top and the bottom of the frame just compositionally balance it really nicely. Okay, so the biggest thing that jumps out at me in this photo is the focusing. So baby's eyes are nice and sharp here, they're in focus, but because it's such a shallow depth of field, older siblings' eyes here are out of focus. And so the solution here is to use a deeper depth of field, which means taking the f-stop higher. So if this, for example, was shot at f.2, I would probably bring it up to f3.2, maybe even f3.5, still focusing on baby's eyes, but just checking back of screen once you've taken that shot to make sure that both of their eyes are in focus. And it's simply because at a really shallow depth of field, when you're focusing on baby's eyes, the focal plane carries along here, and it's about where this guy's ears are, so they're nice and sharp, but then his eyes are much higher, so then out of the focal plane, so we need to deepen the depth of field, bring the aperture higher to make sure that we get a nice sharp shot with both of their eyes in focus. The only other really small thing I'd say is potentially just pulling baby's t-shirt down so it doesn't obscure their face, which I'm going to say in this moment, you probably literally just had a moment to capture this. So it's one of those little things that probably, didn't happen at the time, but it's still a fantastic learning point. I will say though, it kind of feels like it's a snuggly wrap of baby, so I don't completely mind it, but something to keep an eye on with kids, if their clothes gather up around them, we can just pull it down. But love the lighting you've used here. The composition just feels so lovely. That touch of or point of connection with the hand on baby's head just really, really works nicely. Just deepening that aperture, getting those settings so you have a nice sharp shot is the main thing that I would aim for on improvement here. Okay. So here's another really lovely shot from Tasha Ann, really great portrait, chosen a lovely time of day to be shooting in. You can see this lovely warm light here. So settings wise, lovely and in focus. All of her face is in focus. She looks nice and sharp. Your exposure looks pretty good. You haven't blown out any of the background, which can be tricky to do because she's in the shade. And then you have the light over here. Just a couple of things that I think would really strengthen this photo. Oh, and connection in this photo is really nice. Her pose feels lovely and natural. Compositionally, sometimes I might say that it feels like there's a lot of negative space here, and I don't love to put negative space behind people. I love negative space to be in front of them. So that is potentially something you could do, which would just require moving yourself around a little bit more and bringing her over to this side in the frame. But it does depend, and I know you've wanted to include this gorgeous yellow from the fields of canola behind her. So my main point for this one is actually a post-processing point. Now, this photo is probably very similar to how it was shot in camera, and because there's a lot of warmth in the light, the camera has balanced out the auto white balance, and she's really, really cool, which means there are some blue tints across her, which makes the skin tone look a little not as natural as it could. And so I just did a really simple edit on this, and you can see how it brings up her skin tone to be a lot more warmer, which actually matches the light that it was taken at the time. So if you're comparing the two, how it's just really small tweaks. Now, this is something that I just did this on the image you submitted on Facebook. So that's a really, really light touch edit. If you were taking this photo in RAW or you had the full-size JPEG, this is something that our CLG presets could absolutely help you with. So they are preset editing actions. So maybe you could do one of the base presets that we have, so maybe the clean and colorful. I would probably maybe even look at the earthy neutrals, might be a really nice one for this. It would be a couple of clicks to bring that warmth, add a little contrast to the image. So really simple tweaks. because I think you've taken a lovely clear shot. Your settings from your camera have been really nice. Your composition feels nice and balanced. You have great eye contact, catch lights in her eyes. All the elements are there. Just it can be sometimes that final tweaking of processing the image that can help it to pop and stand out. So what do you think? The things that I really love, the use of color, finding lovely soft light to shoot in, making sure those settings are balanced so you're capturing the action, you've got shutter speeds nice and high, you're getting clear focus, and then being able to finish off a shot with just the right amount of post-processing. Now, if you'd like to learn more, if you would love to have the opportunity to have your own photos critiqued as you work through and learn the foundations, you might be interested in our enthusiast photography course, which will teach you how to shoot in manual mode, how to know the settings each time to take your shot, and of course, all those foundational elements of where to find the right light, how to compose your images for impact and balance. And of course, we talk about taking portraits, landscape storytelling, and some post-processing as well, so you can finish off your images. If that is you, head over to our website. You can get started on our enthusiast photography course very, very soon. Or if you're already shooting manual mode, you might be interested in our advanced photography course, which runs twice a year. You can also find the details on our website for that one. We do, of course, have lots of workshops that we run throughout the year as well that you can dive into and take part in to improve your photography. And we have some fantastic workshops coming up, including one on social media. We're doing an Instagram bootcamp for photographers. It gets started mid-October. It's going to be really fantastic, helping give you confidence to show up online, how to share your images, and of course some technical details. If you are not really familiar with how to share your business, yourself, reels, that kind of thing on social media, this is going to be great. And so again, head to our website, check out all the details on that. Thanks for joining in today. It's always fantastic to share beautiful images from our Click Love Grow community with you. Keep shooting, share your work with us, and I'll see you online again very soon.